Okay, so in the last video I showed you guys the opposing viewpoints database, and again that's a good one if you're still kind of unsure of what your topic might be. Good way to get some ideas and also to find some sources that are collected together on any given topic. One that is a little bit more specific is one called EBSCOhost. So that's starting with an E. I'm going to click on E. But if you wanted to, you could scroll down. Well, I'll just do that since I'm doing it. Scroll down to the E section, EBSCOhost. Very popular. Let's check it out. Waiting. There we go. Okay, so when you click on EBSCOhost, it's going to come up with this page, and it'll have these two specific databases highlighted. Now you have the option to select all of them or to select any of them that you think you might want to look in. Each of these has a specific focus. So this one's called Business Source Premier, so we can assume that's going to deal with all things business. ERIC is one that focuses on education, so Education Resource Information Center. Green File, this one's a little bit more about environmental issues, and on down the line. So you can just kind of peruse and see which ones you think might be geared toward the topic you're researching. I'm going to go ahead and click on ERIC and keep Master File Complete and Academic Search Complete on. Now, just a little bit of context, what EBSCOhost is, it's, as the title suggests, it's a host. So it basically collects a bunch of different databases and keeps them all in one place. In a way, it's kind of like Netflix. Netflix collects a bunch of different pieces of entertainment, movies, etc., and collects them in one place, so you can just search through Netflix to find Tiger King or whatever it is you're looking for, right? So this is a research kind of counterpart to that. So I'm going to click continue. Now we have these three different search fields, okay, and I'll show you guys how to use those, but I want to go ahead and just scroll down to show you a couple of things to make sure that we have highlighted. The first thing is full text. Make sure that you have that clicked. Now you'll notice it was already clicked when I opened it, so chances are it's going to do the same for you, but just make sure it's going to, it has full text clicked on, and that means all the sources that come up are going to be accessible to you, the full text of that source. If you don't have that clicked, sometimes it only gives you like the first page. It's not the full source, so it's not as good a research, but we want to make sure that's clicked there. Something else, we want to try to make sure that our parameters as far as how old or relevant our sources are specified. So here it says published date. A good rule is to think about sources being no older than 5 years in most cases. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and click here in the year section. I'm going to type in 2015, and then all the way to the year 2020 because we are in that year. So within the last 5 years. I want sources that are going to be more relevant and current in that way. And those are all the things I'm going to go ahead and click on now. Now I can begin to search for my particular topic to see what sort of sources might come up on that. Now I'm going to click in online learning. That's something that I am continuing to learn about. I'm sure you guys are as well. So I'm going to click that in, but because it's two words, I want to make sure that those two words are grouped together. I need to put them in quotation marks. So I'm going to say quotation mark online space learning close quote. So that means that it's going to pull up only sources that have these two words together. If I don't put the quotation marks, if I leave those out, it's going to find sources that have online and learning in the same source but not necessarily together, and that might skew the topic a little bit. So I want to make sure that it's using that phrase together. So I'm going to go ahead and click and see what I can find. Okay, so search results, it came back with 7,275 sources. That's quite a bit of sources to look for. So I want to think, how can I make this a little bit more specific? Now, I mean, I can cruise through and see, okay, let me see what kind of sources I have here. See if any of them seem interesting, which is good to do, but still, that's quite a big group of sources to search through. So let me see if there's another way of thinking about online learning, or to make it more specific. I might also type in the next one, distance learning, because those two phrases are often used interchangeably, and so that might yield a more specific batch of sources. Let me see what comes up. Yeah, so I mean, it's still quite a few, but cut a few thousand of them out. So that's a little bit more specific. I like that. That's going to give me some things that maybe are more particular to the topic I'm looking at. Another phrase that I've heard used for these things is distance education. Oops, not education, education. So let me see if that can be even more specific. Not too much, but still, that might yield some more specific sources for me. You'll notice, so this one right here, it says PDF full text. I'm going to go ahead and click on that just to show you how that works. So that means it's going to be the PDF of the actual source. So that's good. That means that it's the full source, how it would have appeared in the actual journal it came in. Actually, I'm having issues here because, oh, there we go. Okay. So you see it has the imagery and whatnot. So chances are this used to be an actual print source, but they've just converted it to online. And yeah, you see, so this actually came out April 2nd, 2018. It was in the source called Business West. And you see here it has the page number that it was in that particular magazine. Page 32 is where it started. So it's an actual representation of how it would look in the actual magazine, the physical magazine. So you can see there's some pictures and whatnot. I don't know if this is really what I want to focus on, so I'm going to go ahead and try to find some more specific sources. So the reason I'm interested in these is because of what's going on with this pandemic, right? So maybe I can go ahead and make that more particular to that. So let me type in COVID-19. Now this isn't in quotes because this is all just one word, right? So I don't need to worry about putting it in quotation marks. So let's see what we can find. 4 sources, that's really specific. Yikes. So I might need to open it up a little bit so that I can cast a wider net, because 4 is a little bit too specific. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of distance learning and see if online learning and COVID-19 are going to yield something. Okay, 40. That's actually a good batch to peruse through. All right, so you can go ahead and read the titles of the sources, give you some keywords that might be found in some of the sources. I'm going to go ahead and click on this one, the online learning divide, but I'm going to click on the PDF full text because I want to look at that full text. Waiting. Internet's a little slow. Sorry, y'all. Is everyone doing okay? Yeah? Ah, there we go. Okay, cool. Got some imagery here because it's the PDF, right? So say I start to read through this source and I'm like, this looks like one that is really good for my paper. Let me go ahead. I want to make sure that I save this because, sometimes we might, if we don't save it, we say, oh, I'm going to remember it. But then, a day or two later, we're like, crap, I don't remember what that was. So we can go ahead and email it to ourselves. So you look over here on the right-hand side, there's these different tabs you can click on. So you can email it to yourself. So click on that and say, you can go ahead and type in your email address, subject. So I might say something like, source number 1. And you can add brief, some comments just to kind of help you what that source was about. And then if you say send, it'll send it to yourself, to your own email address. And that way, that's a good way to save your sources, to keep track of them, to make sure that you don't lose any especially if you think it is a really good source and you don't save it and come back a few days later and you're without it. So you could also print it. So if you have a printer, you can go ahead and print the source if you'd prefer to do that. I'm one of those types of people who actually likes to write on the source. It helps me better. Google Drive, you can also upload it to Google Drive. All sorts of options here. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. But before I do that, just a couple of things to reiterate. So remember, sometimes we need to think about other ways of phrasing our search terms. So say you type something in and you don't really get a lot of stuff back, or maybe there's it's not specific enough, or maybe it's not really what you're looking for. Just think of a different way of saying it. So remember, online learning, we could also use the phrase distance learning or distance education. So think about the different ways that you might characterize the topic you're looking for, and then you can use these little boxes here to make it even more specific. So when I typed in COVID-19, we saw it yielded a much more specific group of sources focused on that. So that's a good way to drill down and get more specific with the sources you're finding. All right, y'all.